heavy dose of responsibility because I was also the official in the State Department who was working on Georgia before, during, and after the war in 2008. And by the way, as a historical footnote, I led a process within the US interagency from the State Department when I was there, shortly after Russia's invasion of Georgia. I believe it was in September of 2008, to impose sanctions on Russia. We got absolutely nowhere. I was completely overruled by all the other agencies in government. Few people know about that. But in Crimea, we faced the problem of looking back within the US government. And I don't want to go too much into the internal deliberations, but we faced the problem of what happened in South Ossetia. And the table of decision makers was preoccupied with the notion that we not repeat the mistake that Saakashvili made by falling into a trap. But the problem is that the Russians created the trap. If you use military force, then we have a pretext for invasion and we send in our regular troops. If you do nothing, you saw what happened in Crimea. They take it surreptitiously using little green men. So they had set the trap, and the United States and other Western powers allowed for the government here, which was new and experienced, to walk right into it. Now, I'm not saying that there's much that could have been done other than getting involved militarily, but it was for the second time in the 21st century that the basic fundamental principles of the UN Charter, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders, had been broken by Russia. And it was painful to watch. It was absolutely painful to watch.
So what to do with fear?
Well, so I believe strongly that we have not done a good job on Crimea, and I'm going to stay on Crimea because I do think there is a rationale for adopting one approach for Donbass and one for Crimea. But unfortunately, what we've seen over the course of the last 4 years is that Crimea has dropped off the radar screen. It's become accepted as a fait accompli. And of course, there are the perennial State Department statements, the official proclamations, the speeches given by senior officials, and so on and so forth. But we have failed to institute a policy of deoccupation that, to any rational person, looks like a successful policy. Because what exists right now does not look like a successful policy. And so I think it requires some of what we talked about earlier, but it also requires elevating the status of the discussion. Because we have allowed, for example, for what amounts essentially to ethnic cleansing to take place under our very eyes, and outside of a UN report and a couple rapporteurs who are talking about it, the world they've moved on. They're not focused on this, and that's sort of our collective responsibility for allowing that to happen. And so I think the first order of business is to craft a strategy that has various different layers to it, but then also elevating the issue.
Thank you very much, and we really appreciate your personal staying with us, morally and physically. It's for us very important. Thank you for your help and cooperation with us. Шановні пані і панове, будь ласка.
My question is to Mr. Carpenter.